Welcome to I Wish You Could Hear This, where we explore great stories and simple proven steps to help you thrive in life, faith, and relationships.
In our research, we've heard hundreds of hope-filled strategies for marriage, parenting, leadership, and life that are grounded in science and consistent with biblical truth. And now you can hear them too.
I'm Shaunti Feldhahn.
And I'm Jeff Feldhahn.
There are some wide-ranging questions that really puzzle women about men. I know that's really a huge surprise to everybody. Like, okay, my husband doesn't seem sentimental. He doesn't seem romantic. Like, does he really love me as much as I love him? Today on the podcast is a day that is going to speak to both women and men and dive into some of those topics as we go to some really fun but actually kind of important topics with musician and popular Dadville podcaster Dave Barnes. You grew up as a preacher's kid, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You became a singer-songwriter. You have lots of albums, many charted songs, and you've also written and co-written songs for a lot of artists that we love, like Blake Shelton and Carrie Underwood. You also, for people who don't know, who just know you as a musician, that you have this really popular podcast called Dadville, which I love. You and John McLaughlin.
Yeah,
I've been on the podcast with you guys, which was incredibly fun.
We loved it.
You explore life, you explore parenting. You're married to Annie, and you have 3 kids, I think?
Yep.
We just love hearing your story. We want to hear a couple minutes of your story.
So I grew up, like you said, my dad was a pastor, and we lived in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, for kind of the first to 10th grade for me. So kind of the formative childhood years. And so music was not, I mean, y'all will laugh, but like, I don't think I had a friend that owned or played a guitar. Like, it was 8,000 person town. So, I mean, I had friends that had drum sets, but not, so there was no sense of interacting with music that way. You know, that just kind of wasn't an option for me.
And it wasn't a family thing.
No.
Okay.
In fact, I thought I would probably go into ministry. That was kind of, I thought, you know, Dad did it, so obviously I sort of seen it. When I started playing drum set in Mississippi, my parents gave me a drum set because I played in the marching band, drums in the marching band. So it's kind of, and I really liked music. Like, I had an affinity for it, but played drums. We moved to Knoxville my upcoming junior year in high school. And all of a sudden, my high school in Knoxville was a third the size of my town in Mississippi. So, as you can imagine, opportunity was everywhere for this. And I met all these guys. This is kind of the height of grunge. And so, like, Pearl Jam and those kind of bands were a really big deal. And so, everybody was buying electric guitars and distortion pedals and stuff. And so, I just started jamming with these guys. They'd come over to my house because I had a drum set set up in our sort of, like, bonus room. And we'd jam. And it was like, I was like, this is just some dark magic I really enjoy. And but what's funny in God's sort of way of doing things is I loved playing drums. I went to Middle Tennessee State to play drums and study drum set. But while I was there, my roommate had a guitar, and I started playing guitar and then it was like, oh no, I love this. Like and I just immediately started writing songs. And I mean, immediately. It wasn't something where I sat and learned other songs. Something in me was like, oh, like if I have a guitar, I should write songs. And so I started writing them. And then my best friend, still my closest friend to this day, Micah, would sing songs I would write. So I'd write them because he has a great voice. Because I was a drummer, you know, I was not a singer. Like, I didn't even sort of thinking about singing. But I wrote this one song for him to sing, and he was like, man, you actually sound kind of cool singing that song. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And so then sort of the road diverged, and I started like sheepishly writing songs for myself, you know. And then and because, you know, my dad says, you know, as Barnes, we may not know, but we're sure about it. There was just an unbelievable amount of errant confidence in me at that time to be like, I guess you just go play shows. And so I literally started booking shows in college, playing these songs. And I was really blessed because I just knew a lot of people in the South just from the PCA, the denomination, my dad. It was just like, we just knew people. And so I'd call a buddy at Mississippi State and be like, hey, can I come? Can you like get a room at State through FCA? And then after it, I'll play a little show. And so I started to do that, and then moved to Nashville and met a guy named Ed Cash, who's in a band called We the Kingdom. But is a monster producer-songwriter also, and has done that for most of his career. And he was like, hey, I worked for him for about 6 months, and we made a record, and then it was just kind of off to the races after that. But the whole thing, if anyone ever doubts the sovereignty of God or provision of God, my career is just me walking through these crazy open doors over and over and over. Because there's no, to your point, there was no pedigree for it. There was not anything that was like, oh, this is what you do,
But you were proactive.
Extremely.
And it wasn't like you were waiting for it to drop and hit you.
No, but it wasn't a planned. It's a weird way to explain it. It wasn't a planned proactivity. It was just sort of a bunch of energy in a lot of directions, and just kind of like where there was opportunity, I would go. It wasn't like I sat down and had a vision board or like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, because I wasn't that smart. And it was like, it's just so hard to do in a creative field to like so much depends on other things, and it's taste, it's not effectiveness of a product necessarily. I mean, it is if you really want to think about it, but it's just you're dealing in emotions. And so it's hard to be like, hey, buy this thing that I made that does this. And everybody's like, oh, this really works. We'll buy it. It's like, I don't know. You may think it worked and that person, there's no definitive, you can't.
I was just going to say, that's like serving up insecurity on a platter sometimes.
So let's talk more about that. I'm going to lay down while I do that just so you guys can counsel me. It is. I mean, even at 47 now, I mean, I still, me and my friends still, I was talking about this with a dear friend the other day. I still struggle with this because I'm more Teflon than I used to be, but I'm still just this emotional, sensitive singer-songwriter guy. And so as much as I can see the successes God has granted in my life, it's like there's a temptation for every day to go, that's it. It was a good run, and and I really enjoyed it. But Jesus, the songs are gone, and that's fine. And I'll be fine. Everything's okay. So I think there is still, even now, a temptation. Your point, Shaunti, just kind of go like, I don't know. Is it still good? Do people still like it?
And here's the when you were saying the kind of sensitive, the kind of insecure at times about these things. I don't think women really get that because they don't think of us as being.
You guys look so confident.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
Or at least we try to
present
project
that
it
way.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just going to say, this is not. Let me rephrase that because I try to be nice about it. You look so confident. Like, actually, a better way is you want people to think that you're confident,
Absolutely.
and so you're like trying to look confident.
But inside,
yes.
It is all of those questions of, man, what if the ride ends right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrifying thought.
Well, and okay, so I want to go a little further into this because I want to dive into something. As I was thinking about, thinking about you, Dave, and what you do, and both Dadville as a podcast and some of these songs, I see sensitivity inside the heart of men, right? Like, I see God gave me you, like the lines, God gave me you for the ups and downs. Like God gave me you for the days of doubt.
And do women not believe that that's going on?
That's the thing. I think there is a lot of assumption in the hearts of women that men just don't have that. Like that's not that sense of sensitivity and love, like that deep love and care. We just assume that's more us than you. And so I'm really curious, in your words, what leads you to write those kinds of vulnerable songs about love and relationships and how much love there is inside?
I don't know. I wish I had an articulate answer. I think the best that I can say is that I'm just so drawn to those songs. I think the songs that really mess me up in such a wonderful way are those kind of songs, those kind of really vulnerable, heartfelt songs. And so I think it just feels natural. I always laugh. I think a great litmus paper test on what people's North Star is creatively is like, if you gave them a guitar and put them on a like deserted island for 2 months, what songs would they have when you picked them up? Because I think a lot of things can kind of influence what you think people want or what you think is cool. But if you really felt like, man, I just want to write what I want to write, it really does to me show that person's inspirations, like what comes in, the thing goes out. And for me, it's just like that's what I write. I just think if you leave me alone for a couple of months, 80% of what I write are going to be kind of love songs. And but I also think that's because so much of the songs I like in the world are those. And so it's like, it's hard for me. I was actually thinking about this the other day. A friend of mine who I think is such a great writer, and he just has all these, his songs run the gamut topic-wise. And I can really envy that sometimes because I'm like, man, I wish I could write a song like that or whatever. But I'm like, it's just funny that if you leave me alone, I'm always kind of like, oh, it'd be sweet. Or like, there's something to that, hopeless romantic thing in me that I can't shake,
I think it takes that what you just said, takes women by surprise when they see that sign of there's like this romantic gene.
Anecdotally, when we would ask this question for guys
in our qualitative research,
would say, to the ones who were married, would say, do you think about your wife, over the course of the day when you're at work, out doing whatever? And a guy would say, well, yeah, she comes to my mind all the time. It's, kind of a microsecond or whatever, but it's a flash across my mind. And it's a pleasurable thought.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of it. And, I have that thought and that's it. And women are shocked.
When we ask women, do you think your husband thinks about you during the day? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Nope.
No, he's busy with work. He's busy on all these things.
That's
That's the
amazing.
thing. Just because we don't necessarily take action on it at that time, which I encourage guys to try to realize that they have to do that.
Yep. Okay. So
can I say this though, just because I think this is an interesting anecdote also, for my friends in Nashville who are songwriters or artists that bend more like I do towards sensitivity or sort of, maybe being more, I don't know, what's the way to say this, emotionally verbose. How about that?
Okay.
Can I tell you what all of their wives are like? Not
What?
that. Not
Really?
that. Oh, no. No.
Interesting.
No, my wife, who is unbelievable, that's not her thing. So this is the joke. Like, I will meet, somebody will be joking and they'll be like, I mean, is your wife just like the happiest? And I'm like, she kind of doesn't care. Like, no, I'm not being mean.
No,
And
it's just her.
She's kind of, I can play her song. She's like, that's so sweet. So let's get picked up and now we got to go to the thing. And I'm like, okay, it's like, but that's how it has to be. If I was with somebody like me, we get nothing done. It'd be this. And so I think that the thing that people need to understand is, for all of my friends in Nashville that are like me, 90% of their wives are these kind of like generals. They're like, because it has to be. Mm-hmm. You have to have balance of the force. And so it's like, I can't be with someone who's like, oh my God, can I read the poem I wrote about you today? And I'm like, oh my God, babe. And there are those couples and they're adorable, but mostly there aren't. Just because God knows, like, no, we're not going to be able to achieve anything at that point. Like, we need to.
That's great.
We're not going to achieve anything.
And so I think, it's easy to sort of get lost on like, oh my God, but it's like, I'm not necessarily getting that back, and I don't think I need to get that back. That's not the point. You know what I mean? I'm doing that. That's enough for two of us.
But let me just mention that those women who are generals, right? Because can I slightly raise my hand?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Or,
Yeah.
It's okay. You can be honest. I'm looking at my husband.
I'm waiting to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Well played. Well played.
I know.
That's wisdom.
Well done. But those women who are the strong, the generals types, right? But we still adore our husband. Mm-hmm. And we have that question inside of, does he love me as much as I love him? Right? Like, that is one of those things, like we were talking about. Like,
even the generals.
Absolutely. Like, you're still a woman.
But you know what? I think it presents really differently, in my opinion. So I think, because I think if you asked Annie that, she wouldn't say that. I don't know that Annie would be like, I sit around and wonder if Dave loves me. I tell you what she does wonder. Is he going to get done the things I asked him to do? Like, will he help me when I need help?
Is that part of love?
And that's how it presents.
Yeah.
And so I think what you have to be careful with is, I'm not disagreeing at all, but I think it is a matter of nuance on realizing, like, because I really think if you had Annie come in, you go, do you sit and think about if Dave loves you? She'd be like, no. But she would say, the things that show me he loves me, is he going to do those things? Mm-hmm. And I think that's something it's nuanced, but it matters.
It
because
totally
sure.
matters. I totally
know.
agree with you. Yeah. I mean, and all of these things, right? Like all of our
Yeah.
research is based on the idea of one of the reasons we did the surveys so that we
Right.
could say, hey, this is 70% of
Right, that's
women
right,
or
that's
whatever,
right,
but that means
that's
there's
right.
30% that it's not, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
it's
okay,
still
so
asking the same thing.
it is.
So there
It
is absolutely
asking, do you
consistency.
care?
That's right.
Do you
that's
love
right,
me? Right.
That's
Okay.
right.
So what would you say, Dave, to the women listening who are wondering this about their husband?
There is just such a gulf in the way that God so purposefully made each of us. And so I think so much of it is learning to translate action and communication and sentiment into appropriate language from each gender, as opposed to going that's not what I would say. And it's like, well, of course he's a man. He doesn't talk like you talk. He doesn't think like you think. Now, but if you can really get your head around when he does that, it means this. And when he says that, it means this. Then you really start to thrive in,
sort
in
of
that
translate it.
relationship. If you go, and I mean, it's a million things. It's I think the love languages is a huge piece of that. I think things like the Enneagram help with that. But I think whatever those things help you realize, like, I'm expecting something from him I'm never going to get in the version that I want. But if I can learn man speak, if me as a man can learn like woman speak, then man, it starts to get a lot better, because you have to hold. Our marriage is, for me, and Annie's the most consistent human being in the world, so she's always been great. I'm the one that can be a little, believe it or not, all over the place. Anyway, but I think what helped me so much in our marriage, and I would say our marriage has never been better because of this, is that I have to hold space for difference. Because the minute I had a counselor tell me once, the beginning of the end of every marriage is, why can't you be more like me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, this is what you guys do so well with what you bring into the world, the both of you, is it's just, you're never going to be the same thing, and you'd be miserable if you were. And so I think it's trying to go, okay, when she does that, I take it like this. That's not what she's trying to tell me, though. She's saying this to me.
And what you're doing there, and this is what we try to encourage folks all the time to do, and in the books and the research, is to start from a place of goodwill.
Oh, yes,
and
that's right.
To start from a place that, okay, she's not me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And
Yeah.
because she's a general and I'm not, that's still okay. We're getting things done. Our marriage is working. Our kids are happy. And it has to start from that place of believing the best.
I think something that's been really interesting to me is there's a little bit of like, is it the Gandhi? This is going to be hysterical, but that Gandhi quote of "Be the good you want to see in the world," or I think it's Gandhi. I'm like,
or Mark Twain.
It could be either, or a Bob Dylan lyric that we all forgot about. But I do think that applies to marriage too, in the way of like, do the things you want in your marriage. Because to me, like, my wife is not super affectionate. I am. I stopped. So now I'm just affectionate with her. I'm like, I don't know if this means anything to you, but it means a lot to me. And so I do it.
Yep.
And so if she, and man, every now and then she answers in kind, and she'll hold my hand and I'm like, I just have to do it. I have to stop keeping score on, like, because this is as much for me just to do it. Not to go, why don't you do it back, and just go, I'm just going to do the things I know to do.
Right.
And I actually get weirdly, just going by and grabbing her hand for a second, or, holding her, hugging her or something.
Yep.
She's probably like, man, cool. But I'm like, man, I actually feel good that we did that, and not going like, why didn't you hug me when you came down?
Right.
So
and
like,
I'm gonna
do
withhold this until you start doing
that's
this.
Exactly
Yes,
it. And I think that
it.
sentiment really matters. And I'll tell you something else, guys, that I think a lot about with this, and I think it overlays all of this in a very significant way. We are all going to struggle with loneliness as human beings. And I would say, more than I think we all understand, a huge driver for how we feel and how we get frustrated in our marriage is because we're just lonely no matter what. And I think that is okay. And I think that's a space only the Holy Spirit can fill. And so I think when we bring that energy into a marriage, and I think, especially as Americans, we've created this idea that our partner is supposed to be everything to us. We have these romantic movies. I write these songs that perpetuate this, but like,
you perpetuate the myth,
there's
Dave.
a culture, and I think especially in Christendom, that's like, hey, when you find your one, They will make you happy. You'll wake up every morning and roll over and see their face and smile because God has given you. And I'm like, some of that is true. Like, oh man, really good days, it's pretty amazing. But most of the time, they are going to be a human that do what they do. They have a relationship to God on their own. They have a relationship to the world, your kids, on their own, just as their own person that is living at the same time in the same house with you, who's doing the same thing. And then you also have this marriage. And I think what I've really had to reconcile with my marriage, and it has made it so much better, is that I'm just going to be lonely. It's just how it is. She can't do that. Now, sometimes what's beautiful about that to me is then I can go to my best friends, Micah, my best bud, and go, hey, can we go on a walk? I just need to. And he, man, for a moment satiates that loneliness. And I thought Annie could, but she can't. And then sometimes I go to my church friends. I go to my soccer guy friends who we talk about soccer, and it actually satiates that for a moment. She can't do all those things. She's not built to do all those things. And so I think what's scary is we actually have to do work as humans in a marriage to go, I got to take the weight off this spouse because I am bringing all of my stuff to them and going, you got to make me happy. The world is beating me down. My kids are beating me down. My job is beating me down. But make me happy. And they're like, I can't do that. And then you go, well, what's wrong? Well,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, here's the thing. I don't think we realize that we're doing that.
Yeah.
I think, like, especially for people who are followers of Christ, like, if I could just say, I think most people, we don't want to put our spouse in a place that only God can fill, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't think of ourselves as saying, your job is to make me happy. Like, I would never think that, but I know that I do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that I think is absolutely the key is, and one of the things that you said earlier, I think brings some action to this. And what do you do about it? Which is to go, I am putting what I need on him or her, and to say, no, you know what? Let me actually see that. First of all, he can't or she can't do that, but also that God is actually working through this person to care for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this person does actually appreciate me. They do love me. They do whatever. But like you said, it just might look different.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to translate in my head those things that they do and say, okay, that was a gift from them and from God to me.
Again, I just think there's this thing where we have all of this attention and affection that we want to put somewhere, frustrations, all these things. And I think for me, my prayer life changed drastically when I realized that I had weighed down Annie so much in our marriage. I mean, she was just bearing the weight of all these expectations, all of this, like, if I had a bad day, I come in and like, hey, make it better. And that could be through a million things. Life's hard. Make my life better. And eventually I just sort of read the room on like, I'm killing her. And I think all of a sudden my prayer life was revolutionized because I think God was like, hey, I can actually handle all that. Like she can't. And so God became my therapist. God became my friend. He became this place that I could just vent. And then it was like everything just and then Annie has this wonderful ability to then handle the weight I give her because it's appropriate. My friends can handle the weight that I give them. It's appropriate. My life, my job, whatever it is, and it's not this sense of like, Annie, you're my helpmate. Help me. And then she's going,
carry all this
bro,
for
like
me.
I can't. Yeah, like I'm not your Sherpa.
That's
I'm not
brilliant.
like your,
It's great. And so here's the thing that Dave, you said that really hits me. You went to God with it, and you talked with him. Look, we live in an age where you can become part of any group.
Yeah.
And particularly on the internet.
Yeah.
And, there are corners of the internet where if you want to have your way of thinking affirmed,
you can find it.
you can find it in, and they will say, man, you are so right
For
to
sure.
feel that she's not treating you well and she's not respecting this or whatever. And we do it sometimes. Sometimes we do it in our women's group or men's group,
Yeah.
and sometimes it feeds that feeling of dissatisfaction and
Oh, yeah.
frustration.
Oh, yeah.
When honestly, it's just what you're saying.
Yeah.
I took it to God,
Yeah.
and
That's
look, it
so-
just that's what transformed me.
Well, and I think, and then you go, so to your point, like, I just went and vented with some of my friends as we were watching a game at, Buffalo Wild Wings, and I get in the car and I'm more angry.
Right.
I went to the whatever Facebook group who agree with this thing, and I'm more angry. And I think that's where God gives us such a gift in the fruit of the Spirit. I mean, what a gift he gave us, and going, if you want to know if you're doing the right thing, just check this list. Like, do you feel these things? And
Yeah.
you're like, not really. He's like, well, then that's probably, here, And so I think for me, in your marriage especially, it's like if you're mad every day, or you're, frustrated with your partner, or you're yelling at your kids, you may feel this vindication in one way, but if it's not exhibiting these fruits, that ain't vindication. And so I
Right.
think for me, that's where those things get so tricky, and where prayer is such a gift, because, prayerfully we leave those times, you don't always, or time in the Word or whatever, with this like, dadgummit, there's the clarity. And you're like,
Yeah.
I need to go apologize, and it's like, oh, that's the Spirit. Like, I
And
feel the Spirit,
I love that.
And the craziness is it works.
It does, yeah.
And that being all churned up inside goes away. And I'll say from our experience, I could hold on to those things for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
be churned up
Miserable,
and at odds with
miserable.
Shaunti.
Yep.
Miserable
Yep.
the whole time.
Yep.
And it could have been solved in 10 minutes.
That's exactly
it
right.
Could have moved on.
Yep.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
But you also didn't know. First of all, you were kind of early on. You had built up years as growing up, a habit of kind of, if me and my dad are mad, we just don't talk, right? Like
Yeah.
your dad was like the sweetest guy in the world, but it was just like a guy thing, right?
Yeah.
But you also didn't know how it affected. You didn't know how it affected me. And so there's 2 reasons. It's for you, and it's for the person you're with, and I guess 3, which is you're honoring God.
Well, and
which
your
is-
kids too. 'Cause
And
they
your kids,
feel
okay,
For sure.
4,
too,
yes. Hearing from you about how you process this stuff, Dave, I don't think you realize how much God has given you this gift in all of the songs that you write, and in the way you think about life and the way you think about relationships. You've done a lot of processing and thinking and learning and growing by writing the songs that you write. And so I'm really grateful.
Well,
that
you know
you're
what it
willing
is
to
that I've
share that
learned
with
too,
us.
and y'all know this, but I think as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, this stinks, and I wish it could be other ways, but wisdom, I mean, it usually takes pain to get wisdom, and I think I've just had to really reconcile myself to, like, these seasons you walk through that are really tough. The grace of God in it is that I bet you're learning a lot of things, like, it may hurt and it may be frustrating, but man, the things that in the seasons that have been hard, I really come out the other side and I'm like, man, I have such clear thoughts about things from that, and so I wish you could just be like, and some people may be smarter than I that can really go, oh, I don't have to go through pain to realize something, or I have a friend that taught me something because they did.
I don't
Right.
have to walk through that.
Yeah, I don't have to
myself.
walk through that. But I just think it's a byproduct of I mean, man, James 1, like, thinking so much about perseverance and how it produces wisdom is such a fascinating thing. And I tell you, it has really shaped me when people say, I've been praying for wisdom, because I'm like, grab a seatbelt, homie, because it's about to get, like, that usually doesn't come from, like, or like when people pray for patience, you're like,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Sure.
Really?
have fun,
You want to pray
like,
for
enjoy
that?
that. Yeah, let me know how that goes. But it's true, it's like, I think a lot of the stuff that I've thought about through our marriage has been because, I've just had seasons where I was just not a great husband, or I was, demanding too much, or, whatever. And man, just the wisdom I've gotten from, because Annie's just so unbelievably consistent. And, to your point, Jeff, it's like Annie has taught me so much about forgiveness and moving on. Like I can be like you. I'm kind of, well, guess what? You don't get to talk to me today.
Right.
And she's like, okay, whatever, we're moving. And I've just learned, like, there's been few things that have transformed my part of our marriage more than me going, just forget about it. Just move on. And every now and then you have to go, hey, like, we need to talk about this. But 80% of the time, it's kind of like, let's just move on. They didn't mean that. Or you didn't mean it or whatever. And I used to be like, all right, here's another Ebenezer. Let's sit down. And she's like, oh, my gosh.
So one of the things that we oftentimes try to do with every podcast is to leave our listeners kind of with one big takeaway.
Yeah.
So when you look back at your story and all that you're doing now, what's your big takeaway that, is what they can believe about themselves, about God, about their spouse? What would be something that you'd want to just kind of put the stamp on and say, there, I said it?
I think there's probably so I would say vocationally, one of the things that I'm so thankful for, and that I think God is really showing me in this season, literally right now, is that anything that has really been substantial and amazing in my career that I would say are kind of Ebenezer moments, it's got so little of my fingerprints on, and if I really tell the stories, they're just God's unbelievable storytelling and, kindness to me and my career. And so I think in a season I've been struggling some lately with just kind of like, what's going on? It's just felt a lot harder the last couple of years. And it's easy for me to want to grab the wheel, and kind of go like, all right, let's put a shift in. We put our head down and we go. And I think God in His kindness kind of slowed my head and heart down over this last few months to kind of go like, hey, let's walk backwards a little bit and revisit those Ebenezers. And every time I'm like, wow, I didn't really do much with this one. I'm kind of looking at, you put that there. Okay, that's good. And it's just one after the other. And it's just been a real heads up on me going like, oh yeah, I had no like, well, if I do this and talk to that person and this thing, it's like, God's like,
I
nah,
made
bro.
that happen.
Yeah. And so I think just believing in the margin of my life is where God writes His stories. And so the best that I can do is to create a lot of that and to not overwhelm that space with my insecurity and control, but to go, Lord, I'm going to do what I know to do, and the rest is yours. And I think that's, so I think career. And then the other thing I would say, I'd just circle back on that. I think just to encourage married folks and people in relationships, I wrote this down at the beginning because when you were talking about, just again, I think the more we can understand in our marriages that, one, we're just going to be lonely and that's okay. Like that's a part of being a human. I think a lot of bad codependence comes out of thinking that can be satiated by a human. And I think like, to be okay with going, Lord, to be human is to be lonely. And that's okay. Being alone is okay. How can you help fill that space? Like help me to appropriate the things in my life for the places they should be.
Yeah.
And mainly God being a huge part of that in the middle. Like he's a big part. It's really big. And then I think too, just, I wrote this down too, but like, holding space for the differences in your spouse, and really being okay with like, Annie is all these amazing things that are really unlike me. And the more that I can reconcile myself to that and celebrate those things, it makes our marriage so great. Because then, one, I can expect appropriate things from her, but I also then it spreads out these beautiful weights amongst the other people in my life. And it becomes this really robust, multicolored life of like each friend has these beautiful things you share with them, as opposed to like, and I think honestly, and this is the last thing I'll say, but to the men out there, I think that's why friendships should be so important, is because it's really easy for us to go, hey, wife, you got all the colors, you got all the help, this is the only relationship I need. And when you actually go, oh, you do these 2 or 3 things really well, but gosh, I kind of need other people to do that. All of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, I should kind of have my friends do these things. And then you actually have this really amazing community that can hold the weight of your life amongst them. And it makes for really beautiful living,
That's beautiful. And it's a great encouragement for all the guys listening and all the women too, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Dave, I just can't thank you enough for taking your time and
thank you.
sharing, part of your life with us and with listeners, we'd just love to tell folks to make sure that they check out your podcast, Dadville. I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for our podcast as far as it's probably
it's very
more.
Small. We just started.
But it probably the makeup is mostly more women than men.
I think it's 75% women.
So yours.
I hope it's a lot more men.
Guys need to listen to your stuff.
Yeah, it's so kind.
I mean, it is engaging. It's entertaining. It's fun. All of those things. So, fellas, I mean, or the wives encouraging their husbands to pick up a podcast.
Come join a bunch
Yours
of dudes
is one.
as we relate to each other.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
You and John are great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So look up the Dadville podcast, everybody.
Yes,
we'll put that in the show
thanks.
notes.
Thanks so much.
And just, Dave, thanks for coming on the show
Yes,
today.
thank you for having me. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to I Wish You Could Hear This. Remember to subscribe to our podcast. And as always, forward today's audio or video link to a friend, counselor, or pastor who would be encouraged.